So welcome to Ed and Ethan, point 5. Of course, as we draw off of the opinions from different panelists across the country. Today, of course, I am your host, Ethan, as always, and Ed joins me as my co-host, the fantastic and amazing Ed.
Hello, world.
Also on panel today, we welcome Lasha Kretzel. She's a talented freelance journalist. She joins us from Ottawa, and her work can be found at kretzel.ca. Lasha, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Also, Tim Moen, he's the founder and operator of Fort McMurray Alt Media. He joins us from Fort McMurray in Alberta. How's it going, Tim?
Yes. It's going fantastic. It's a beautiful day here, and I'm looking forward to delving into the topics.
Of course, and we always look forward to having you on just so you can do exactly that. Now, the first thing we were going to start with was this, the non-conventional family boom. So essentially, Statistics Canada has shown us that unconventional families, that is common law, single parent, stuff like that, have really shot up in terms of a percentage of the population lately. In 2011, I think it was 16.7% of the families in Canada were common law or single parent, whereas before, those were around 5.5% in 1981. So, I mean, huge increase over a long period of time.
Yippers.
But I don't know. Is this the census has given us all kinds of interesting statistics to kind of chew on. But I guess I'm kind of curious. Do we even need a census? It doesn't really seem useful to me. These statistics are interesting, but I don't know that I want to pay for them. Right? I don't know. Like Tim, do you find any value in the census here?
Are you kidding me? The census is highly valuable. Look, I mean, I run a business and I grew up on a farm, and I understand how important information is. On the farm, we had to figure out which fields were yielding more, which ones weren't. Sometimes we had to take money from, more productive fields and sink it into, say, fertilizer for the less productive fields. I remember my grandpa's milk cows. He kept careful records of which ones were producing the most milk, and it turns out the ones that were allowed to go out to pasture produce more milk than the ones that were kept stalled up. So, I mean, to me, it's the census is record keeping for tax farmers, and as a tax farmer, you need to keep very close records on which tax livestock, groups of tax livestock are the most profitable. And, I'd say here that, the census is telling the tax farmer maybe he needs to pander to a particular group, transfer some wealth from another productive area and into another one to yield a bumper crop of votes to keep them in power or something like that. Listen, if you're a freeborn human being and you don't see yourself as cattle, then this whole census thing is a whole lot less important to you. Yeah. And in fact, filling it out may actually be contributing to your enslavement in some way. But I find it kind of insulting. I mean, a couple of years ago, I remember a census taker came to my door, and I told him I didn't want to participate. And he asked why. And I said, well, because you're forcing me to. You're basically pointing a gun at me and saying I have to do it. I mean, the law says if I don't fill this out, I get $500 taken from me, or men in blue costumes will come and put me in a cage for 3 months. And I may choose to defend myself. And what happens then? I die in a gunfight.
Yep,
that's what happens.
You're the bad guy.
And so, sir, you are essentially saying to me that if I don't fill out this form, I may die.
So, well, okay. I mean, it's the census is trying to give an idea of how communities are made up and how services can be distributed, right? I think that really can just be done by market demand. I mean, you have a hospital somewhere, it's visited by so many people in a given month. That's a good indication of what kind of need the hospital has to service. I don't think
To me, the census, or the result of the census, just kind of feels like religion on a decline. And with religion on a decline, people become more secular. More secularism is, I think, better. But that's how I feel, I guess. But yeah, on the note of needing the census, and of course, it's not needed unless you need to tax people.
Well, it seems census here says no need for census. I don't know.
The consensus,
that's such a contrived joke. Okay. I want to look to Quebec. We had in Quebec the Canadian flag taken down in the Quebec legislature, which is, of course, called the National Assembly. The only one that stands there now is the fleur de lis. I can't remember how to pronounce that. But so essentially, it's kind of a big fu to the rest of Canada. We are independent. We are defined by our own little.
I think Harper said a nation within, or what did he say?
I think a nation within a nation is an idea that's been around for a while, right? So, I don't know. Do we really care what Quebec's doing in this respect? I mean, I guess we care because we're giving them a bunch of money, right? I don't know.
What do you figure, Lasha?
I think that's actually part of it, is the fact that they are receiving, well, in 2012, 2013, they're going to receive $7.4 billion, I think it is, in transfer payments, which is quite a bit considering most of it's coming from places like Saskatchewan and Alberta. I think that it's basically... It was an interesting move to do, but I mean, Marois' whole point of going into office was that she wants to piss off Ottawa. So then I thought what was really interesting was how the government chose really not to react to this, that they gave this, they knew that if they would let this action get under their skin, then the PQ knows that they can basically get away with anything at that point. So I thought that was rather interesting. And I mean, it wasn't really that, like, that's what it was, though. It was just this childish attempt to, stick it to the man, get Ottawa fuming, start off on we're not gonna take this sitting down. And
well, I've actually heard quite a lot. That's the tack that we should be taking in the rest of Canada, is just ignore the temper tantrum. Like, that's what I've been hearing.
Exactly. And for me, it's kind of, I'd say let's just call the bluff. I do honestly think that it is a bluff, given how much Quebec receives from the rest of Canada and the amount that it would cost to separate. I don't think that the country, like a sovereign Quebec, would be a viable option. You have things like they would not be using our currency because, heaven forbid, they have the Queen on there. All the any kind of federal jurisdiction buildings or anything like that all has to be bought. All of your you're going to lose a ton of businesses. They already did. I mean, the Bank of Montreal is based in Toronto already. They already said goodbye. I don't see this as being a realistic option. I really think that it's not to be rude to Quebec from Ottawa, but just it's time to start treating them like everybody else, like true, as we say, equality.
Yeah,
everybody
exactly.
is the same.
Tim,
you get treated the same regardless.
Tim, you're probably paying the most out there in Alberta. What do you figure?
Oh, they should hang the Alberta flag in the Quebec National Assembly.
That would be fantastic. I mean, it does seem rather childish, right? I mean, like, I have no particular investment in the Canadian flag, and I can sympathize with some. I mean, I prefer to have all flags taken down everywhere. Yeah. Because that would tell me that people are starting to think for themselves. I mean, to me, flags are just, they're simply tools to get humans to sacrifice themselves for the ruling class.
I like to think of them as gang colors.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they are. And, but I mean, I don't think that the PQ are taking the Canadian flag down for any such philosophical principles. I think they're just, because they're leaving another flag up in its place with the fleur-de-lis. So obviously they don't have an issue with flags. But I mean, to me, the issue isn't necessarily the flag so much as the fact that there's wealth being taken from people and transferred to other people, and not from groups of people, but from individuals. Like, each individual has money taken from them. Who knows where it goes? I don't know how much of my money goes to Quebec. I mean, I just would prefer them to stop taking my money. And I don't care what people, 3,000 miles away do in terms of putting bits of colored cloth up on their wall. Yep. Doesn't really make that much difference.
Tim, you brought up you brought up a good point with the monarch. They had to swear an oath to the monarch, and they all kind of did it, and they didn't really thumb their nose at it. I know a couple of them tweeted some different comments.
Some comments, yes.
But
they were not.
Yeah, and it's just I like it because they're saying screw you to the man, and I'm down with anybody that does that.
But they are the man.
I mean, and they are the man too. That's
different.
true.
They're different.
Well, she's trying to be the woman.
The woman. It just I don't know. It doesn't seem. It to me it looks just like it's all theater, right?
For
the people in Quebec, what does this actually do for them? It doesn't really do much for them. It continues a system that is generally just not beneficial for them, and it's now accompanied with a lot of childish. There's always been accompanied by a lot of childish bickering.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's superficial, and if they really wanted to go, if this was really a principle, they wouldn't be swearing an oath to the Queen, and they wouldn't be accepting our money. So it's kind of like, you guys are kind of superficial in it.
Yeah. There's a final thing I wanted to bring up here. The Blue Jays' Yunel Escobar. He triggered a bit of a tiff across Canada, across North America, in the Twitterverse, really around the world. He got international attention, I suppose, by writing a homophobic slur under his eyes. I think it was on
in Spanish, I think.
Yeah, it translated to "you're a faggot." So, I mean, basically, this caused a lot of uproar all over the place, calling the guy out for, bashing homosexuals, right? It looks to me like this is actually a really good example of why we don't actually need, say, hate crime legislation. Because people are already really upset about this and calling them out on it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, people should be calling them out. I mean, to diss Harley riders like that is ridiculous.
Wait, I'd call back to South Park, I think, yeah?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that people automatically thought it was against gays, I mean, I found that a little weird. I mean, faggots are obviously people that ride around on Harleys, like the South Park guys. So, in fact, I think that, to me, the term faggot should probably be used to describe people who watch baseball as opposed to, say, grass grow or paint dry or something like that. But look, hate crime, to me, is a relatively meaningless name altogether. First of all, calling people names or blaspheming a prophet. I mean, those are rude things to do, probably, if they're intended to hurt or provoke someone, but they're not crimes. And, telling someone a hard truth can actually be an act of love, even if it offends them.
Yeah.
And yet that person may find it hateful. So to me, the question of hate only comes into play with regards to crime when it's assessing maybe someone's risk to reoffend. But, I think most crimes, especially ones that are purposeful and premeditated, have an element of hate to them. So to me, it's just a relatively useless term to use at all.
Mm-hmm. Lasha, do you think context has a play in this? Because apparently he was saying it as "you're a little girl" is a translation from Spanish.
Or intention, right?
Or intention, sorry, yes.
Yeah, and that is sort of the thing where you get into the language about what it actually means to use a term like that. Is it, to us, it might be a derogatory slang for a homosexual individual, but for them it might be just, I'm degrading your masculinity. I'm not saying that you sleep with other men. I'm just trying to degrade your masculinity. But I just get just with the hate speech, I mean, this is something that I've had to think a lot about myself as well. I know something that I brought up in regards to some other issues that have come up in my life. But for me, it's not the acts that accompany hate that are my concern. That, if he'd actually gone and harmed somebody, that's a completely other matter. But the idea is that somehow that this emotion of hate makes a crime somehow worse. Because for me, murder is murder, rape is rape, theft is theft, property damage is property damage, whether it's motivated by hate or not. And I think that at that time that the law should come down fully on these individuals, but I don't really see what the difference is between someone who does something out of hate and someone who does something because they're indifferent. I mean, the same act has been committed. And I mean, people in Canada, for me, seem to have this idea that they have a right to never be offended or to have their self-esteem damaged, which is virtually impossible to do because the amount of things that could offend any particular individual, let alone a society, number in the millions. You can't count them. So I just think that in the end, it's just words are words. Actions accompanying those words are different. The actions, like I could say that I hate minority X, but by saying that I hate minority X, have I really prevented them from doing anything? Have I really stopped them from going about their daily lives?
That's why I think this situation is best served by social ostracism and calling the guy out for making what is interpreted here as a silly statement. It explains why we think it's a silly statement.
How do we do that though with a baseball player? Do we not go to his baseball games anymore? I don't really know how.
Oh, you could not go to baseball games. You could call him out. You could. I mean, realistically, I mean, if he comes into your business, you could say, I mean, realistically, under a perfect society, you could say, I'm sorry, sir, I refuse to serve you because I do not think that you are an individual that I want to be doing business with.
Well, it's worth pointing out the league and the game gave him a 3-game suspension. This was not a government agency that imposed any penalty. It was the participant in that market, right? So I don't know. I think that everything here seems to be working properly and doing so exactly without it's doing so without government.
Yeah.
Yeah, without courts having to get involved.
See, I'm just kind of I still kind of want to get back to the whole point of context, I guess. Like, would I get a 3-game suspension if I said that talked about the Hiroshima bombings? You know,
3-episode suspension.
I don't know. I don't know. It's we shouldn't be indifferent, but it's just context, I guess. I don't know. For me, anyway.
There's also an element to it. Like if someone commits a crime in the heat of the moment, in a stressful moment, or something like that, versus someone who is outspoken against a particular group and kind of premeditatedly and pre-plans a crime and then commits it. That person is probably more dangerous than the person who just, was in a stressful situation and needed to feed his family or something like that and did something that he regrets.
Tim, it's a good point. It's a good point to end on because we are hitting the clock once again, as we normally do here on Ed and Ethan Point 5. So thanks a bunch, guys. We'll catch you later, okay?
All right, take care.
Later.
Cheers. I'm just going to throw things into some quirky stories, some stuff that caught our funny bone. This is Ed and Ethan Point 5. Time for quirks this week. It's going to be... okay, there are always stories from the past week that grab our attention, tickle our ribs, cause us to chuckle, laugh, and explode in hapless senses. Okay, I'm trying to come up with too many words to describe the most basic thing. I wanted to... Ed, did you see this? Mayoral candidates in a Nova Scotia rural municipality have assault convictions. A bunch of them. I think out of the 5... 3 of them have assault convictions. I don't know. It seems.
Wow.
I guess maybe could be the natural progression for a politician.
Moving up the chain, yeah.
Yeah, sure. That was something I don't know. I just when you look at that, you figure, what the heck? But in a way, almost not really all that surprising. Exactly. Okay, this was great. There was a drunk British woman in the UK somewhere. This was last fall. She hijacked a ferry. Okay, so she essentially unmoored a ferry and it careened into other vessels in the harbor. But she hijacked this ferry and swinging from atop the ferry was screaming and yelling, "I'm Jack Sparrow!" I just couldn't believe this. So she was also she was taunting police from the shore, or from the boat. She was taunting police on the shore, just saying, "What are you gonna do now?" And trying to come up with, I'm sure, something that she would see in a movie as a clever line, but without any context. Said, "I believe this is out of your jurisdiction." I mean. Some people, I mean, you get too much booze in you, and perhaps a little bit of I believe they called it a poisonous fungus. we can just speculate as to what that might have been. This was good too. A Fox News host wants South Park investigated for blasphemy.
That sounds about right. Well, for Fox News. Come on, say that.
Come on now. There's some quality folks on Fox News. Okay, so South Park is basic. They poked fun at every religion on the face of the planet, right? Well, it's a lot of them anyway. Scientology has been their target. Islam has been their target. Christianity has definitely been their target. And poor Kyle is the target of Eric Cartman on that show, the token Jew.
Yep.
Every show. So but I don't know. I don't know about investigating them for blasphemy. That sounds a little off. What do you think?
I think they're a little crazy.
Just a little? Come on now. It's better than that. I suppose that's where I'll leave it for today, for this week. But in the meantime, be sure to remember that you've been listening to Ed and Ethan.
0.5.
It's not 0.55. This is Quirks, damn it.